What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. Today, I have an all-time great, a fan favorite for me and many a Hokie Nation. When I posted this interview that I was going to preview this interview, everyone went crazy, not just Virginia Tech fans, people in general. Today, I have Sam Rogers with me. Sam, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Dwight. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be, man. Speaking of fun, you were fun to watch. As I told you off air as we were prepping for this interview, you were one of my favorite players during your time at Virginia Tech. You had some all-time great plays, leadership. You just were a great player. People loved you, respect you. You played for the legendary Frank Beamer, but you became a legend in your own right. And we're going to talk about your Virginia Tech career here in a second. But let's talk about the days of growing up in 804. You come from a great family. Talk about your childhood, your parents, and who influenced you. And let's just talk about how it was growing up. Hanover, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Hanover County. I had honestly a great home life. I tell people when they hear my story, they hear the walk-on story. A lot of people want to paint my life as that walk-on story, but to be honest with you, it wasn't. My life was I was given a lot growing up, and what I mean by given a lot, I was given a great family, a mom and dad that were together. A dad that was a great role model and worked really, really hard and set the example for our family. A mom that's the most loving person that I've ever been around in my life. She's amazing. And then a brother and sister that inspired me constantly. It was a very competitive household between me, my brother, and my dad. My dad refused to ever let us win in anything. It probably didn't matter if I was a month old or if I was 16. He was going to give it everything he had. So it actually meant something to us when we beat him. A quick story, real quick. We had a ping pong table in our house. So we'd have a little ping pong tournaments, me, my brother, and my dad. My brother finally beat him when he was like 15 or 16 years old. So my brother kept that ball. Here, hold on real quick. Someone just dialed in. Can you still see me right now?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So my brother kept the ping pong ball, and then my dad took it and he said, "You are now 1 in 365. Like that's your record against me." And kept that in his room. Like he made sure he remembered that he lost 365 times. So that's just kind of like a window into our family. It was a ton of fun. My parents did a great job raising us. What they would tell you, their biggest advice to other people was have family dinners. And that was the thing that was a staple in our house, is have a family dinner. So it was a great environment to grow up in.
That's outstanding, man. So you played after me, and obviously I'm older than you, man, but you have a natural way about you. You play with some great players. But some people are just players, and some people lead by example. Some people are talkers, or some people just want to play and just know their role. But I do want to ask you before we talk about Tech and your career. Let's talk about high school, because even in high school, people were drawn to you. And I went back and did my research, and I remember when you were playing, but when I went back and reflected on your career, you were a multi-purpose person. Like you played everything. So how did you get into football? And how did that whole thing come about, as far as you just being a versatile player? What drew you to football, and why was it so diverse in your positions?
Well, my dad, first of all, loved football, so he kind of ingrained that in us from a young age. I had been playing football since I was 5 years old, and I had played quarterback growing up. My dad was my coach in Little League. Played quarterback growing up, and I just love playing quarterback. Honestly, I just love having the ball in my hands. Like I just love being able to get the ball in my hands. So play quarterback all through Little League football. Football and basketball were my two favorite sports. And I actually thought basketball was going to be my sport. When I was in middle school, I kind of had this decision whether I was going to go to Benedictine High School and go try to pursue basketball as my main sport and have football kind of as the other one, or if I wanted to go to Hanover and pursue football as my main sport, have basketball kind of as the other one. I was kind of at this like fork in the road, but I matured physically pretty early. So when I was dominating in 8th grade, I was like, man, I just love football too much. I got to play football. So then after that, my goal was to go as a 9th grader. My goal was to start as a quarterback as a freshman. That was my goal. I was like, I'm going to go in there, and I had to beat out 2 juniors to do it. It was an open competition. Wow. And went in there and started as a quarterback. I got to lead the team, went to the state semis that first year, which was a ton of fun. Had a bunch of great leaders around me that helped me and showed me the way. Sophomore year, started at quarterback again. Then junior year, I was starting at quarterback. Midway through the year, I dislocated my elbow. So I couldn't throw the rest of the year. Came back a couple weeks later and had a big brace on my arm. And it was honestly the biggest blessing. Like I thank God so much for it, because I wouldn't be at Tech. I wouldn't have played at Tech if I didn't dislocate my elbow, because I only played quarterback. And I'm a 5'10" guy that isn't the fastest in the world. Obviously, I believe I can make plays with the ball in my hands. But as far as going to a camp and blowing people out of the water with my speed and all that stuff, it wasn't really going to happen. So people weren't looking at me too much at quarterback. So I dislocated my elbow. And then the rest of that year, I played linebacker, tight end, punt returner. I played anything. So going into my senior year, when my arm was healthy again, I basically just played quarterback and linebacker. So I moved all around. I got to have tape at a bunch of different spots. And Virginia Tech probably wouldn't have given me a walk-on opportunity if that didn't happen. My I guess, claim to fame in high school is I was able to get all district at 4 different positions. So I was at linebacker, quarterback, tight end, and utility throughout my career. I got 4 different first team all district. And then I told Bucky Hodges, you guys know Bucky, he's way more athletic than me, first of all. Okay? Like, he is a freak athlete. But I love to mess with him, because my senior year, I was first team all-state and he was second team all-state. And it was at the position of athlete, which is so laughable to me, because he probably should have been first team. But when we got there, I'd call him my backup. I said, "What's up, backup?" Because he was my second team all-state. I was first team. But anyway, that's kind of a window into it. I didn't have many scholarship offers. I got 2 1AA offers from Bucknell and St. Francis. And then later in the recruiting process, UVA and Tech came in late and were recruiting me pretty heavily as a recruited walk-on. And they both told me I'd have a chance to play early. So obviously I went with the team that wins more. So.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I can't believe. First of all, shout out to Bucky Hodges. That's my guy. It's funny, that story. So let me just ask you this about, we're going to get the UVA and the Tech rivalry later. But I do want to ask you this. You said early on, if you hadn't gotten hurt, you probably wouldn't have gone to Tech. What do you, just elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean? Like, they were looking at you?
Yeah, I thought I was just a quarterback. Like, I love playing quarterback. I was like a dual threat guy. Probably not your traditional dual threat guy, and that, like, I was a power runner at quarterback, like more of like a Tim Tebow type of runner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was that kind of dual threat. And then, like I said, midway through my junior year, I dislocated my elbow and I wasn't able to play quarterback anymore. I don't think, if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have been able to show teams like UVA and Tech that I could do other things. And they probably wouldn't have recruited me. At the time, I thought it was the worst thing in the world, because I was so mad that I couldn't play quarterback, all this stuff going on. I look back and I'm like, God, like, you obviously know what's better for me. And you obviously know more than I know, because I wouldn't have been able to go to Tech and play there if it wasn't for that instance. So that was like my first big lesson in understanding, like, God's faithfulness and God's goodness. And it was honestly a turning point in my life, like, where my walk with Christ started becoming more central to who I was. If that makes sense. Before, I was kind of in and out. Junior year, through that situation and a couple other people really speaking into my life, that was kind of a turning point for me. So, like I said, I'm super grateful for it. I wouldn't have been at Tech without it.
And Hokie Nation is excited that you came to Tech, and we still appreciate the legacy you left there. I want to talk about a little bit about recruiting. Not so much in depth, but who recruited you when you were at Virginia Tech? I mean, when you were coming to Virginia Tech?
Shane Beamer. He started recruiting me after
my guy.
Yeah, he's the best. Started recruiting me after an all-metro banquet. I got offensive player of the year my senior year in the Richmond metro area, and they called me after that. And then Coach Beamer, Frank Beamer, they called me after that and asked me to come up on an official visit, and it was fun. It was a ton of fun.
I do want to ask you this, man. Shane and I played together. We were there together, and he was on my Legacy Spotlight 3 or 4 weeks ago. Him and his dad, and it was a special time. And for me, Shane is my brother, so I'm very happy for him as a coach. I knew this was coming even when we were playing together because just the way he thought, the way he carried himself. What are your thoughts about him? I know he's not a hokey coach, but he recruited you around him. You've seen his growth from a player perspective. What do you think he's going to do, or how do you think he's going to do at South Carolina? Are you happy for him?
Oh man, I couldn't be happier for him. So a little bit about South Carolina. My wife, my sister, and my sister-in-law all went to South Carolina. So our family is still pretty pumped up about the fact that Shane Beamer's coaching there. But Coach Shane, he does an awesome job at convincing people that they're great. You know what I mean? Like he believed in me sometimes more than I believed in me, which was awesome. He gets the best out of his players because of that. Everybody has different styles of coaching, right? Like not everybody's going to be the same type of coach, but the way he coached was awesome for me. Helped me become the person and player I am today. He, like I said, his biggest attribute, I think, is that he just believes so much in the guys that he recruits, and he just empowers them that way. So he's going to do an awesome job. He's a great recruiter. He's a great mind, and I think he knows how to get the right people in the building to help him do something special there.
No question, man. I can't wait. And they play us. I asked
I
them,
know.
they play us, and I think it's a Chick-fil-A kickoff. Not this coming season, but the season after, I believe. Yeah,
Yep.
so it's going to be a great time. Speaking of great times, when you were at Tech, you had some great plays. But you also played with some great players, and you were part of that upset against the nationally ranked Buckeyes, Ohio State. For you, just talk about your time at Tech. Just when you reflect on your time at Virginia Tech, man, just some of the standout memories. What were some of your tough times and what's some of your great times?
Yeah, man, there's so many. Honestly, on both. There's so many tough times, so many great times. The great times, just this, just being in the locker room with all your brothers is the best time in the world, especially after a win. One of my favorite memories, and this game might get lost in the shuffle, but we played Notre Dame my senior year, and we went down big early. We came back and won, and it was a game that really didn't mean anything as far as the standings go. So we would still have to win the following week to go to the ACC championship. So it was just like this weird game, the 9th game of the year or the 11th game, whatever it was the game before the last one. It's like a backyard football game. It meant nothing for them. They weren't having a great year, and it really didn't mean anything for standings for us. But it was cold. It was sideways snowing, and we went down early. And it was like the most I felt a team just come together and rally around each other just for the love of football. It was the coolest thing I'd ever been a part of. Another great thing I remember is just all the great people that you've been around, I could go through and list all of them, but there's so many that just had a huge impact on me in the way they carried themselves and the way they approached each day. All those things have just been probably my greatest memories. Obviously, knocking off Ohio State, it's a lot of fun. And beating Miami on a Thursday night. So those are probably my great ones.
How was the Ohio State game? I wasn't fortunate enough. We played some big games when I was there, Texas and so on. But to go to the Horseshoe, a night game. I think it was their first time ever losing a night game to any opponent. How was there's certain places in college football. You mentioned at Notre Dame. You have Texas A&M, the 12th man, their stadium.
Right.
Of course, there's legendary places, but the Horseshoe where the Buckeyes play is definitely one of those places. How was it? I know you're moving forward, but just to reflect on that, how I've never been there. How was that game, that atmosphere, and how did it feel to just really knock them off?
Gosh, it seems like a blur looking back, but like it was an incredible feeling. To silence 110,000 people is a ton of fun. Like there's nothing like it. We were kind of like controlling the game the entire game. They got a sack fumble. I believe Joey Bosa forced a fumble on a sack later in the game, the third quarter. And that was probably one of the loudest, with the exception of Lane Stadium. That was one of the loudest I had ever heard a stadium roar. And then we came back the next drive and drove right down the field and scored again. It was it was insane. And then just to have Hokie Nation sitting there in the family section and us all running over to him after the game, it was absolutely incredible. There's nothing to describe it. So
You had that play. You had that play in that game. You mentioned playing quarterback in high school, where you scored on that game on the pass, but you also had that one when they did the trick play. You caught, you were going to throw it, and you just tucked it and ran. I remember sitting in my living room watching, like, man, this guy Sam is just a beast. Like, that's just a heady play. Because you see that play sometimes in NFL, high school, and college, and the guy will get that, he'll just throw it, and it'll get picked off, or you'd be like, why, just run it. That's
right.
Did you advocate for that play? Do you like at that time be like, hey coach, you got to put something in for me?
Yeah, so I actually threw a pass my freshman year and I underthrew Logan a little bit. He caught it and his knee went down against UDA. I don't know if many people, that probably gets lost, but so Coach Leffler at the time, the offense coordinator, he knew I could throw. But yeah, I'm always advocating for them. The way I did it and the way I did it even when Coach Fuente got there, before practice, I'm just airing the ball out near the coach, just letting them know, like, hey, I can still sling this thing a little bit. So that's kind of how I get myself to get the trick plays. But yeah, it was fun. It was a ton of fun. I was not about to throw a pick in the horseshoe and be dumb and give them a momentum. So I told myself, this thing's open, I'm gonna let it ride. But if you step for step with them, I'm running. So
no doubt. Talk a little bit about, man, Sam, Coach Fuente. We all know about Beamer. He's a Hall of Fame coach. I played for him, you played for him, but you were in that piece, you and Stroman and those guys, you were part of the transition when, the old regime, moved to different coaching positions in other universities or retired. And then Coach Fuente comes in and you guys win the Coastal in his first year. He was coach of the year. You had that great comeback against Arkansas. And I just remember just sitting there like, this is amazing, that whole season. And then you took Clemson before the bowl game against Arkansas. You had Clemson on the ropes. You
yeah,
came back, and I remember again, I watched you, and a lot of Hokie Nation. It was just like, wow, this is amazing. That offense was, high pace. It was just a great year. Isaiah Ford and Cam Phillips. Just talk about Coach Fuente as a person, a coach, and then what that year, winning the ACC, the Coastal that year, and just what it was like, man.
gosh. So first, the transition from Beamer to Fuente. I was one of the guys that was super upset when Beamer said he was retiring. I respect it. Obviously, he is one of the greatest coaches of all time. But you're sad. It's the guy that recruited you, and you have a ton of love for him. So it was hard to see him go. But then to have Coach Fuente come in with a chip on his shoulder, right? Because he wanted to prove to everyone that he can coach at this level too, right? And be a head coach at that level. He'd come from Memphis and had success there. He had a coordinator job at TCU, helping out the pass game there, and Andy Dalton. But he had never been a head coach and led a program at that level. So he had a chip on his shoulder. And I remember us seniors at the time, we had never experienced the days that probably you experienced and other guys at Tech had experienced, and we were craving it. We had some pretty average years, which is not the standard at Virginia Tech. And we were craving just a new urgency and new accountability and all that stuff. And sometimes when you bring in a new guy, that's what happens. And when we had our winter workouts, they were hard. They were some of the hardest things I've ever been through. But all the seniors were like, we're ready. Like this is going to be good for us. We were primed and ready to go. So I think a turning point in that year is when we started beating the teams that we should by a lot. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's when we realized we were a good team. Because like you said, my sophomore year, we beat Ohio State, but then we come back the next year and we lose the next game, we lose to ECU.
How was that game?
And we couldn't just keep things going. And it's a sign of we were a young team and an immature team, I think, at the time. But all these guys that were coming as seniors had played a lot of football. So it was primed and ready. And then you see us after that Tennessee game, after we were like, all right, we got to get our stuff together. We come back and we smack Boston College, ECU, UNC, and we're winning games that we should by a lot. So Fuente was just awesome. I think he gets misread because he's kind of a private guy, but when you're one of his guys, he takes care of you. He loves you. He's for you. He's an awesome guy, and I have so much respect for that stuff.
Yeah, he showed you a lot of love on senior day against UVA. I remember seeing him hugging you. I DVR all Tech games. So I watch them over and over. If there's nothing on, I put on the Tech game. And that was a special moment for you because you guys blasted the Wahoos. But I remember seeing you and Fuente when you come up and they call your name and you run through and you meet your parents, you guys embracing before the game. And I remember watching like, man, I hope these guys are focused because there's so much emotion going on. And then all of a sudden, you went crazy against UVA. I mean, you had some great, don't get it twisted. You had some great moments throughout your career, but that game, I remember watching with my son and my oldest daughter, and we were like, yo, Sam is going crazy. The runs, the blocking, you were flexing. And I mean, again, you're in the moment. You're not even thinking about this legacy spotlight, your legacy or anything. You're just trying to win on senior day. But again, man, let's go back to that day because I've been a senior. Unfortunately, I was part of the team in '98. We were up 29-7 on my senior day to the Wahoos, and we gave up a lead. And it still hurts me to this day, man, because it's your last game in Lane and you're a senior. Um,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. They were a great team that year. We let up a little bit, but you guys didn't. Just talk about that day and that moment, man. I mean, it was a special time as a fan.
Gosh, that was an emotional game for a lot of reasons. I don't know if you know this, but I knew I was proposing to my wife that night too. So
Wow.
that was going in the back of my head. So I remember in the tunnel with the other seniors when we're going out for senior day, me and John McLaughlin, like we were just sitting there and we're like, I'm not crying, you're crying. And we're both just crying. And like you're just reflecting on everything, and it just goes by so fast. It's just crazy how fast it goes by. You think you have all the time in the world, but you don't. And we're just sitting there in the tunnel and just kind of crying together and just excited for the opportunity. And then Coach Fuente means a ton to me. I was just thinking about him, Coach Beamer, Coach Shane, all those guys that helped me so much. And so kind of those emotions poured out a little bit. Then I remember thinking on my way back in the tunnel before we'd come back out as a team, I was like, I got to get my crap together. I got to play a freaking football game. I got to lock back in. So I tried to channel all that energy into some like, I guess, aggressive little guy. But yeah, it was a ton of fun. The offensive line dominated that game, to be honest with you. But
They did.
Here's what I tell some of the coaches when I'm messing with them. I'm like, look, I didn't get the ball more than 10 times in any other game besides UVA, and I went over 100. So maybe you should have done that a little bit more. But, it's one man's opinion. Who knows?
No, I remember that game. You ran the ball extremely well. You had 2 touchdowns, and there was that one going towards the south zone. You went around the left side, and you took off and just scored, and you threw your hands in the air. And I was just like, man, I love this guy. Like, I just was
Thanks,
like,
man.
no, it was just it was you played with a sense of urgency, and that brings me to my next reflection moment. When you came back, this is post grad. You're back, and we're playing UV, and we're not having a great season, but we need to win to get to a bowl game, and then we had to play Marshall the following week. You already done that, Tech, and there've been a lot of guys. You have Danny Cole and a lot of great players who've come back and grabbed that mic at halftime and gave the speech. And there's people that have given speeches in the locker room, stuff that the fans haven't seen, going back 20, 30 years. But your speech against UVA at halftime, because you didn't even do the whole let's go Hokies thing. You just took the mic. Again, you zoned out. I mean, it's interesting, Sam, because there's certain players, I'm not going to compare you to Tom Brady, but you have people who have an even keel, they're very chill, laid back, and then a switch goes off when it comes to competition, and they go to a dark place, but nothing evil, but just to another alter ego. When you took that mic and you got the entire stadium going, and it's cold, and I'm like, man, UVA is going to break the streak, and you just got everybody going. Again, let's go back to that moment. What was it like? Did you even know or just hit you? Did you start thinking about the moments? Because that speech, you were like, we don't lose to that. I mean, I don't even want to emulate it. Okay. What was going on? Like, what were you thinking?
And first off, when they asked me to do it, I was like, can I come early to prepare? Because I've never spoken in a mic in the stadium like that. I heard there's an echo. So obviously a preparation guy. So I was like, I need to come in there and I need to prepare early. They're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. So I went in there before and there's this like massive echo. So I was like, all right, I got to speak in short sentences. All right. Like I got to be like, here's my point. Here's my point. Here's my point. So I was like talking with my dad about it. And I was like, all right, if it's close, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. So WWE style going in there. But I remember thinking I was going to be excited, but then when you know how it is, man, like when you're walking out there and you just feel the stadium, it just kind of makes you boil up in a good way. So we had it set up perfectly because we had the ball, we were driving, we were on like the 10-yard line. It was like the third, going into the fourth quarter, the end of the third, going into the fourth, and set up perfectly. We were about to take the lead to go ahead. So I just told them, we got to get a couple things straight. This is our game, this is our field, and this is our state. And then started. And everybody went nuts. It was a ton of fun. I still have people joking with me about that one.
I love it.
It was awesome.
I love it, man. So, you had a great run at Tech. You got your wife. We'll talk about your family in a minute, but everybody that plays ball, there's an assumption everybody that plays ball wants to go to the NFL, but many people do want to go. But at the same time, as you and I know, it is a whole different ball game when you get to the pros, especially all pro sports are tough. Let's not get it twisted. But the NFL, it's the least amount of opportunity. It's cutthroat because there's so many talented players. But you get the call. When you were playing at Tech, when your senior year after you beat UVA, and y'all go on and lose to Clemson in the ACC championship, and then you go and you have that great win against Arkansas, and then it's over. I remember we beat Alabama my senior year in the Music City Bowl, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, it's over. It's over, and I have to get ready. I got to finish up these classes, get my degree, and then I got to train, I got to prepare. Were you thinking, okay, after I'm done with Arkansas, am I going to the league? Is this a goal of mine? Are there teams looking at me? Take us back to that process, and was that what you were thinking, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, my whole life. That's what I wanted to do. I remember praying when I was little. I was like, God, I want to go to the NBA or the NFL. That's what I kept saying over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I also want to be 6'4". That didn't happen. God, if I can just get 6'4", like I'm good. I don't need to ask anything else. I want 6'4". So you can see I was a little selfish. But I always wanted to play in the NBA or NFL. And obviously as football became my main sport throughout high school, NFL was the goal. So right when I was done, after the Belk Bowl, I signed with the agent that I'd been talking to, and my dad had helped me kind of vet the agents and all that stuff, and signed with him and went to train a couple days later. It wasn't much of a waiting period. Went there and, I had some ups and downs. Like I went to the Senior Bowl. I was awesome to get invited there. I didn't play as well as I wanted during the week, but I had a really good game. I didn't know if I was going to get a combine invite. I got a combine invite. I thought I did really well during the interviews. I didn't run a good 40 at all. I did okay in the other stuff. I did all right in pro day. I improved my 40. And then you just don't know. Like, it is. You have no idea.
Yeah,
like
some
people tell you 5th round. Some people tell you undrafted free agent. You just don't know. And I just had my family over, and now my in-laws over, my fiance at the time, and her parents and family and all that stuff. And it's just hard on draft day because everybody's staring at you. They're like waiting for your phone to ring, and they're all this stuff. And finally, I got a call from a number out in Thousand Oaks, California, and talked to the Rams, and they asked me if I wanted to come block for Todd Gurley. And we can talk about as much as you want, but it was a weird situation because they weren't using a fullback, but they drafted me. So it felt like when I got there, I was competing more against an offensive philosophy than I was with a player. The other fullback on the team, he got hurt, and they only had me on the roster. I was the only fullback on the roster, but I wasn't on the active roster because they weren't using them. So it just felt like a weird situation. But that whole period, Dwight, from 2017 until 2019, when it felt like the door was shut on playing, was the hardest but best time for me in my walk with Jesus and my wife's walk with him. like getting things ripped away from you, like seems like they're like, Sam, how could that be the best time? Because I just got to see so much more again of his goodness and faithfulness. And it's been this pattern throughout life. And you see it in scripture too. But like when he takes away, it's not against you, it's actually for you, you know?
Yes.
And it's such a flip to be able to like praise God in the midst of mess. You know what I mean? So it was hard, but I wouldn't trade what we went through for the world.
No doubt. No, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I remember getting released in mini camp and being dejected, but then you tried out, a few other teams, you get other calls, and you're like, you know what, man, same deal with me. I met my wife at Tech, we got engaged shortly thereafter I graduated, and we got married, and then you start to see God open up doors for you and opportunities present yourself, and you realize, you know what, I had a great run, but
Yeah.
this is even better.
Yeah.
And speaking of, great things in your life, man, you have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
Today, as we record this interview, you're getting more blessings. You're closing on a home, correct?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So you got a 1-month-old who's
Yeah.
probably keeping you tired more than any defense that you ever played.
It's probably true. It's probably true.
But you're up here in Northern Virginia with me, out in Loudoun County. So just talk about how because family is important to you. All right. Just talk about just having your wife and your child and your family and just what your family means to you. You talk about blessings. Just talk about how having that behind you and with you, that foundation, and how it keeps you going every day.
Man, it's incredible. First off, my wife is unbelievable. She's so supportive, so loving, and to have a wife that pursues the Lord the way she does, man, I could probably sit here and choke up thinking about it. But she's been awesome. And then our baby boy Caleb, we named him after Caleb in scripture, and there's a whole reason behind that. But the name Caleb actually means brave, wholehearted, and courageous. So like I just get to look over my son and speak that life over him, which is so fun. But having them makes like everything worth it. It's incredible. It's such an awesome responsibility. It's not a burden. It's just such an awesome responsibility to do life with them and to do my best to be the best role model for my kid and to help lead our family. And on top of that, we're in Ashland right now, about 30 minutes away from both of our families. So we have help if we need it. But man, you know how it is. You have family too. And it's just one of the greatest things in the world.
No question, man. So what people don't know, or some people don't know, is outside of football, you're now paying it forward and giving it back, not just with community service, but your business, man. Just talk about your program, your fitness business, and how that's taken off, and what's going on with that.
Yeah, so I run a program called Easy Day Training. And the reason why it's called Easy Day, it's after my high school strength coach, who was a psychopath, and I love him. But every time I would come into the weight room, I was like, Coach Jake, what we got today? He'd be like, Sam, don't worry about it. Easy day. And I like almost threw up every single day. So I was like, me and my brother always talked about it, like, we're going to have a program called Easy Day Training. So I started that, and it's every morning at 5 a.m. At 5 a.m. we're meeting every morning. We're working out, and it's adult like fitness training. And it's just so fun. And I'm also the head coach at Hanover. But the reason I bring that up is because with Easy Day and with coaching Hanover, they're both so awesome to me because I just get to build communities towards a goal. Like that's it. Like I love being able to like lead communities and steer them in a positive direction. So we got the 5 a.m. class. I have someone run a 6 a.m. class for me that is kind of like a combination of bike cycling and some floor exercises. My 5 a.m. class, you got a kettlebell, you got a band, and you got a medicine ball, and we roll with that for 45 minutes, and you'll get a pretty freaking good workout.
Yeah, I believe it, and I believe looking at you is real. Hey, now you mentioned, I forgot about that. You are coaching, right? So how is that? Because you've been around legendary coaches, a great coach and Coach Fuente and other people, but now you're in a position of leadership, man. Are you okay with that? Because people, I coach as well, and when you coach, you start to have more respect and more insight for the people that have coached you, and you realize what the work it takes. It doesn't drain you. You're good.
Oh no, I mean, it makes life full. don't like saying busy, just because busy makes it seem like you don't, like you're just running around frantically. Like it doesn't make life busy, it just makes it full. But I'm doing things that bring me life, not that drain me, right? Like coaching these kids bring me life. You know what I mean? Like coaching Easy Day brings me life. So I've had awesome role models. And my dad, my brother, my strength coach in high school, my head coach, Coach Jake and Coach Just, and then obviously Coach Beamer, both Beamers, and Coach Fuente and his whole staff. So and then in the NFL, you got to see how programs run too. So you're just like, man, I love when they did this. I love how he explained this. I love his communication here. So that's been the most fun part, is trying to put your own identity in it, but also stealing what you love from those guys. You know what I mean? And trying to adapt it to a high school program has been a ton of fun.
No doubt, man. Sam, this is everything I thought it was going to be, man. This has been a lot of fun, man. Just getting a chance to actually meet you in person versus social media. This is the part of the show where I let my guests just give their final thoughts, man. You have been blessed throughout. You've overcome adversity like the next person, but your outlook on life is amazing. You appreciate the journey that you've been on and the family that you have. So, in your final thoughts, man, what do you want to tell people that are on the same path that you are? Motivational, inspirational. What do you want to tell them to keep pushing forward? To, if they have a goal or a dream, what advice would you give them?
Man, I'm not trying to like preach or anything like that, but as you were saying it, like the first thing that came to my mind was just a verse that I just kept repeating over myself when things were really, really hard, getting picked up and cut and picked up and cut. But everyone's probably heard it, but I think people have only heard the fourth verse, right? Like in Psalm 23, the fourth verse is, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I'll fear no evil. For your right, like people have heard that. But that first verse there in Psalm 23:1, it says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing." Like there's nothing that I lack. Like to understand that we are whole and full in Him allows us to freely pursue without fear the dreams that He's put on our heart, without fear of failure, without fear of condemnation, without fear of shame. People are like, am I upset that I didn't end up making it in the NFL? Absolutely not, because I know the Lord's my shepherd. I know He's good. I don't lack anything. And I can look myself in the mirror and say, I gave it absolutely everything I had. And if it didn't work out after that, I'm good. So I would first encourage people to understand that like He is everything. And because He's everything, you don't lack anything. So you can go pursue whatever you do with all your heart, with everything you have. And you don't have to fear failure. Failure is not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, not trying is the worst thing. So go and pursue it and give it all you got.
Well said, man. And you have me again inspired, just like you did that day on senior day when you played UVA, man.
Appreciate
I
it.
look forward to eventually meeting you once this COVID thing is contained. We're in the same region, man. And this has been a great episode. And to everyone, the Sam Rogers family, all his supporters and fans, thank you for checking out this episode. And Sam, keep doing what you're doing. And like I say every episode, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. Thank you again, Sam Rogers. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it, Dwight. Thanks so much.